Hey guys, Pelican here, and today I'll be sharing my solo PvP DK build for the Go Road patch. If you watched my recent video, you might realize that I've run like a few variations of this build, used some different ultimates and sets. But today I'll just be sharing what I eventually decided was the best, so I'll just be sharing the finalized version. But if you have any questions like regarding the other stuff I tested, feel free to ask in the comments. So without further ado, let's get into the build. Alright, so firstly I'll go through my sets. For my monster, I'm running Bloodspawn. It's the best set in my opinion for DK. Gives you defense and helps us build ultimate quickly for corrosive. So this build will be playing around the corrosive ultimate as well as the acuity set. So both of these combined will give us an enormous amount of burst damage. So the other set I'm running back by is Rallying Cry. This is pretty much like necessary for solo PvP nowadays, especially with so many gankers around. You really need the crit resistance to survive, and on top of that, it also gives you a decent amount of weapon damage. Now for my mythic, I'm running the new Saints and Seducer set. This is a very strong mythic. In my opinion, it's like one of the best right now, whether you're in group or solo. Some people might not like it because it's a bit dependent on luck, but personally I feel like luck isn't really like a huge factor, isn't that huge of a factor when using this set, because honestly if you look at it, all the buffs except resolve kind of does something, and when you're going on the offense, like there's a 60% chance that you will get one of the offensive buffs, which is either courage, force or berserk. So as long as any of these are up, it will give you a reasonable damage boost. Of course, the best proc here is the major force, and on top of minor brittle, that will result in a 30% crit damage increase. So as you can imagine, with so much crit damage built in and 100% crit chance from acuity, I mean this set is pretty much a no-brainer for this build. And on top of that, like all the minor debuffs are also really good, especially the ones that reduce your opponent's damage. So it functions as a pretty decent defense set as well. Not to mention major evasion can come in really clutch as well. But if you do not have the new chapter or you don't want to run this set, you can always just go with the good old Death Dealer's Feat. Can't go wrong with that. Alright, I'll quickly go through the traits and enchantments. For my traits, I'm running 5 well fitted and 2 reinforced. I like to roll dodge a lot, but personally, if you prefer to like block, you can choose to run more sturdy instead. And for my enchantments, pretty standard, just all tri-stat. For my jewelry, I'm running all infused. 2 weapon damage with mag recovery, and 1 reduce mag cost infused as well. So the reason I'm going reduce mag cost is because of Cinderstorm. So this pretty much makes Cinderstorm like almost free. So this is like one of your biggest heals along Vigor. So DK is pretty unique in that. Normally I wouldn't run reduce spell cost on any other class. I would just run recovery instead, but because of Cinder, reduce cost is really useful. And finally for my weapons, front bar I'm running Axes, Nern, Hone and Charged. Just going with Flame and Poison since DK buffs those. And for my back bar, I'm running Defending, Resto and Weapon Damage. Now some people ask me like why don't I run Sword and Bolt or Ice Staff. Personally, I really like Resto because of not just the heavy attack, which is really good for sustain, but particularly because of the Absorb passive. Gives you mag every time you block an attack, and I feel like this synergizes really well with the new heal, which I'll explain later, that gives you stamina back whenever you cast it. So yeah, that's all for my gear. And yeah, I'm also running 4 medium, 2 heavy and 1 light. You can mix this around as you like. Now I will be going through my skills. Okay, for my front bar, okay, before I go through my skills, let me explain how the burst works. So basically, you will cast Corrosive, and then Flames of Oblivion. And the main burst goes like this. You will cast Deep Breath, and then Fiery Contingency, which is the main which is the scribing skill, and then you will fossilize, and the instant you fossilize, deep breath and fiery contingency should go off at the same time, so this will be a lot of damage at once, and then you just follow up with a whip, and ideally you will time it such that your Flames of Oblivion also hits it in the middle of all that. So that's pretty much just the bread and butter of how the burst on this build works. So fiery contingency, for the, actually I forgot what the scripts are called, but I'm running the flame damage one, the increased direct damage, and minor wound. For my CC, I'm running Shattering Rocks. This is much better than Fossilize. The heal will come in really clutch, and it's also a pretty big amount. Like, I've gotten a 9k crit heal before from this skill, so yeah, this is definitely the morph to go. Deep Breath also pretty much has the same functionality as Fiery Contingency. Now previously I was running Engulfing Flames, and this might make a lot more sense to people because of the increased flame damage taken, but personally I found a lot more success with Deep Breath than Contingency. But yeah, feel free to run Engulfing if you want. Molten Whip, this will be your main spammable, and you can also buff it a bit with Flames of Oblivion, which is probably your main damage source if you're going to open CMX. But yeah, this will also give you your major crit buff on your back bar, which is really important even though we are on an Acuity build, to have crit, because it will contribute a lot to your healing. And finally, for my ultimate, I'm just running Corrosive. For my back bar, I'm running Volatile Armor Morph. I prefer this morph over Hardened Armor, even though I really like the Hardened Armor shield. It's like a 5 to 6k damage shield, really strong, but personally I like the Flame Damage Dot to passively proc Combustion, and also because it helps to proc it helps to proc your Acuity while on the front bar. Take note that the damage reflect cannot proc status effects or Acuity. I think just because a proc cannot proc another proc in this game. So yeah, personally I prefer this morph a lot more. Cinderstorm, this will be kind of one of your main cheesy heals. You should pretty much have this up at all times and try to stay in it as much as possible, just because it's so much healing. And if you watch my video, you notice that I tend to spam this a lot, and that's because of the Mountain's Blessing passive. So I like to cast this a lot to generate ultimate as well. Race Against Time, this will give you your minor force for crit damage, and this is also your main mobility skill. Resolving Vigor, this will be your main heal. And Healing Soul, this is probably the strongest, one of the strongest heals in the game right now. I put the restore, with the restore script on it, you can pretty much spam this like so much, and it comes in really clutch as well because it restores the stam. So sometimes I find myself like completely out of stam, and then I just cast this like once or twice, and I have enough stam for the next break free a roll. And no doubt the best affix script to put on this will be Vitality. This will just increase your healing so much. Finally, for my ultimate, I just have Temporal Guard slotted for minor protection. You spend like probably like 90% of your time on the back bar for this build, so having minor protection is really helpful. But of course, if you don't want to, you can also run like Resto Out. Personally, I prefer the Life Giver's morph, since Major Force, I mean, you can already get it from the Mythic. This is like a lot more useful for surviving. So that's all for my skills. Let's move on to the race. For my race, I'm a Khajiit. This might seem pretty obvious for like a crit build to go Khajiit, but personally I think it will be much better to go Breton and then drop the Atro Stone for Shadow. When I first made this build, I didn't expect to need Atro Stone for sustain, but it turns out that in solo PvP you need a lot more. Like I just lack the sustain without Atro Stone. So knowing that in hindsight, I think it's much better to just go Breton and then run Shadowstone, because the spell resist passive from Breton is just so strong right now. So yeah, definitely go Breton and not Khajiit. And for my food, I'm just running the Bear Haunch. There's no reason to run like any stat foods, so just go Bear Haunch to maximize your sustain. For my attributes, I mean, it's up to you how you want to put it. Personally, I find this the best for me. You can run more or less HP if you want. And also, finally, I'm a stage 3 vamp. So yeah, that's all for the main build. Now finally, I'll be going through my champion points. So for the blue 3, I'm running Duelist Rebuff, Master at Arms, Ocular Overload, and Fighting Finesse. So the reason why I like to go Ocular Overload is because when I'm fighting a lot of groups, sometimes I struggle to like wipe a lot of them and they stack at the same time, even though I have so much AoE. So I really like Ocular just to fight groups. But if you don't like it, you can always swap it for Ironclad, Biting Aura, or Deadly Aim, depending on what you need. And for my raid 3, running Pain's Refuge, Survival Instinct, Sustained by Suffering, and Relentlessness. These 3 are pretty much like standard for any solo PvP build. Now for the last star, you can run a variety of things. Personally, I prefer Relentlessness because getting CC'd and not being able to break like fast enough to avoid like high damage bursts is usually my main cause of death. So having major protection the instant I get stunned is really useful. Of course, you can also go like Juggernaut, or if you want more sustain, you can just run Rejuvenation, and you can also go Celerity as well. So this star is pretty much up to you. So that's all for the build. I hope you guys enjoyed, and next up I'll be probably playing Magicka Warden and maybe some Mag Sword, and probably some group PvP as well on my DK. So I'm looking forward to it, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.